All right, let's jump right in and talk about the future of philanthropy. We're going to look at the huge trends shaping nonprofits right now and all the way through 2026. You'll see there are some massive pressures they're facing, but also some really crucial shifts they can make to not just get by, but to actually thrive.
First up, let's just get a sense of the scale we're talking about. Global generosity is, well, it's staggering. In 2024, charitable giving is set to hit $2.3 trillion. That is an enormous pool of goodwill. But, and this is a big but, that massive number is actually hiding a pretty big problem, a fundamental weakness in how a lot of nonprofits work.
And here it is. This is what's known as the leaky bucket problem. Think about it. All that generosity is pouring in, but nonprofits are really struggling to keep new supporters. Get this, only 19% of first-time donors will ever give a second time. Just 19%. Now compare that to the almost 70% retention rate for donors they already have, and you see the issue, right? They're just not turning that first act of kindness into a real, lasting relationship.
So, that brings us to the big question for today. How in the world do nonprofits solve this puzzle? I mean, this is about more than just getting donations. It's about building a stable foundation for the future. So, let's break down the forces that are squeezing them and then explore the strategic shifts they need to make to really succeed in 2026.
Okay, the first major pressure is coming from the outside. The very ground is shifting under their feet because donors themselves are changing. Who is giving, why they're giving, and how they're giving, it's all going through this massive transformation.
What we're seeing is basically a generational handoff of philanthropic influence. While giving from affluent households has actually dropped about 10 points over the last decade, the ones who are still giving are donating 30% more. But the real story here is the huge surge in millennial giving. It jumped 22% in just 1 year. This isn't just a small trend, it's a major shift in who's driving philanthropy.
And for the next generation, well, influence looks completely different. For Gen Z, traditional authority figures just don't have the same pull. Instead, a whopping 61% say that if a creator they follow is involved, they're more likely to donate to that charity. That signals a huge move toward trusted, authentic voices.
And it's not just culture that's changing. Policy is getting in on the act too. Starting in 2026, a new tax law is going to let non-itemizers deduct up to $1,000 in charitable gifts. And what's the goal here? Well, it's to re-engage millions of small-dollar donors who might have moved over to informal platforms like GoFundMe and bring all that generosity back into the formal world of philanthropy.
But the pressures aren't just coming from the outside. Nonprofits are also facing some really significant challenges from inside their own walls. Everything from tech gaps to staffing shortages, it's a serious internal squeeze that's making it hard for them to adapt.
A huge internal pressure is this technology divide. Check this out. Larger organizations are adopting AI at nearly double the rate of smaller ones. And this isn't just about having cool new tools. It's creating a real capacity gap where the big players get bigger and the smaller ones risk getting left behind.
And we see a really similar story when it comes to fundraising. You'd think that digital fundraising is everywhere, right? But the reality is pretty uneven. Only 19% of nonprofits raise more than half their money online. And, incredibly, 11% raise absolutely nothing online at all. They're still relying completely on traditional methods.
And when you dig a little deeper, you find even more hurdles. More than half of nonprofit leaders say they struggle with competitive pay to attract good talent. Almost 70% of donors are worried their data could be hacked. And, this is a big one, a staggering 76% of nonprofits don't have any formal AI policy, which leaves them pretty exposed. All these things together are just squeezing these organizations and making it so much harder to grow.
And on top of all that, you've got political shifts creating massive uncertainty. About a third of nonprofits rely on government grants. And recent federal funding cuts and freezes have led to canceled events, lost speakers, pulled sponsorships. It's forcing a lot of them to scramble and completely rethink where their money is coming from. So, wow, facing this intense squeeze from both the outside and the inside. What's the path forward? It's definitely not about just working harder. It's going to require a fundamental shift in strategy, in technology, and maybe most importantly, in mindset. It's a shift toward what people are starting to call relational philanthropy. Digital marketer Joe Fry just nails it with this quote. Donors are people, and people respond and react to society, right? This is the heart of the new strategy. The focus for 2026 has to move away from these one-off transactional fundraisers and toward building genuine, two-way relationships, treating supporters like true partners in the mission.
So how do you do that? Well, one really innovative strategy is something called the nonprofit planogram. Now I know, that sounds a little corporate, but it's a concept borrowed directly from the retail world. Imagine walking into a store where you can see all the products on the shelves, all neatly organized with prices. This model does the exact same thing, but for a nonprofit's programs.
It's a four-step process that helps demystify what an organization actually does. You start with big categories, like good health. Then you break them down into subcategories, like medical services. By attaching real cost to each of those, fundraisers can then present these really clear, tangible products for donors to fund, which makes giving feel so much more direct and impactful.
Okay, another key shift is all about adapting to a new digital reality. With the rise of AI-powered search, people often get the answer they need without ever clicking through to your website. So, to survive in this new world, organizations have to master what's called zero-click content.
And what this really means is meeting donors where they already are. It's about answering questions directly on search pages and social media platforms. The goal isn't just to drive website traffic anymore. It's about building trust and authority wherever your audience is actually looking for answers.
And what's the engine that powers all of this? The planograms, the zero-click content, the relationships themselves, it's all underpinned by a really robust data strategy. Data is what allows for personalization. It lets nonprofits understand how donors behave, tailor their communication, and build trust by showing real, transparent impact. And building this kind of culture isn't magic. It really comes down to 4 key steps. It starts with good governance, making sure the data is secure and accurate. Then it's about moving to modern cloud systems, using analytics to turn all those numbers into real insights, and finally, appointing data champions on your team to make sure everyone is on board.
So at the end of the day, the future of fundraising is way less about the transaction and a whole lot more about transformation. The goal is to build a real community around a shared mission and using every tool you've got to create clarity, connection, and authentic human impact.
And that kind of leaves us with a final thought to chew on. As nonprofits navigate all of these powerful shifts, will their ultimate success be defined by what's written in their mission statement or by the strength of the relationships they build with the people who make that mission possible?